welcome back. Yes, indeed, those two gentlemen join us this morning. Mr. Daniel Obwala, a legal practitioner and also a spokesperson for the dissolved Tiku Okowa Presidential Campaign Council. Then you also have beside them Aliyu Aldu, a member of Media Strategy Subcommittee of the APC's Presidential Transition Council. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Well, the president's, quote, men are now in place. So, yes, now people wait. I don't know if it's with bated breath to see how they've hit the ground, but whether or not they'll see them running. But I know the PDP has been speaking up about their impressions about this, the entire cabinet, the entire team, asking them to reduce it. I don't know if you share the same view. What do you think about now that they've been constituted? We've heard at least initial statements from some of them, which something it's an indication of what to expect. What do you think of it?
Well, thank you for having me. Someone like Lateef Fagbemi, senior advocate, I was very impressed, not just by his selection, also by his performance at the Senate, but most importantly, shortly after the inauguration, I think there's a side interview where he said his core objective in that office is to ensure that there is adherence to the rule of law. And he said rule of law simply means obey rules and regulation, and that the vision of Mr. President should key into the rule of law. Stellar. Because, for example, him being a lawyer, the creed of our law practice is that every legal practitioner is to promote the rule of law, foster the cause of justice, and not to be engaged in any conduct that is unbecoming of a legal practitioner. That is striking. There are some of them also that from their initial statement, you could tell that they have a clear idea of what they were going into. There are others, maybe they have idea, we don't know, but their first speech with Nigerian people is threatening fire and brimstone. And to us, we felt that somebody who does that does not probably have a firm grasp of the role he's going to play or an idea of where he's going. And then sometimes, even if you do, priority also matters. I mean, if you have too many shoes, you know which one comes first, which one comes second. And so then again, I feel that Mr. President's choice is his prerogative, based on Section 5, to choose whoever he wants to choose as a minister. The constitutional requirement is not a big deal in terms of, whether you have certificate or whether you qualify to run for House of Rep and all that. But the nation looks at the other aspect of competence, which is character and fitness. Looking at the person's history, look at the person's trajectory, look at the person's capacity and see whether he's fit for the job. And when you escalate it further, somebody may be capacious, can be competent, but the role he's assigned to, is it a role that perfectly fits into what he can, bring? And I feel that the president missed it. I have about 7 to 8, people that I felt were put into places that had nothing to do with their capacity. So, for example, if you have a phone and the phone is a smartphone, you know what it can do. But if you bought the phone, but all you could do with the phone is make a call and send a text, you're underutilizing that. And this is what I feel that the president has had a case of a mismatch. In other words, you have a square peg in round holes. And so history has taught us that as effective as you are, you can only optimally function in that area you have a maximum advantage. If you are put into a place where you don't have an advantage, because focus creates blindness. If I'm looking at you, I'm not looking at my back. So if I'm taken to a place where my capacity cannot be utilized effectively, the presumption there is that either I become a liability there or I become redundant.
All right, well, we'll take a look at that a little further. But Mr. Aldu, having seen all of this, perhaps you could also respond much later in addition to your response to this question. Are you cautiously optimistic or outrightly optimistic that, look, yes, this team is in place, they will deliver?
I'm optimistic. I have faith in the president. I have faith in the vision and those he has chosen to, implement his promises to the people. It's a lot of responsibility on those that have been chosen, and it's a privilege for each and every one of them. Because when we look at history of record of people we've had in public service, like I said throughout the campaign, I maintain it, like there's no individual who has actually excelled so well in the private sector and has, moved into the public service and at leadership level, in a steady growth, no repetition, from Senate to governor, party leadership, then now president. it takes a lot to be able to have grown that way. So that in itself deserves a lot of faith in him. So yes, there are a lot of concerns here and there in terms of some of the options, but the thing we are...
Including within the party as well?
Yes, sure, certainly. Oh, I even personally have of my own. But
of which one? Minister for Youth? There isn't any at the moment.
I'm sure that will come. That will come, you know.
You have your own reservations.
Yes, you know, but then it depends on where you're looking at it from. He has a vision. You know, as much as we understand what he's trying to do, we don't really know as much as he does. You know, like my brother did say about round peg in square hole. No, I don't think so. It's about, irrespective of what you have, it's a simple phone or a smartphone or a gadget, you know, it's about your intent for the gadget. You know, you can have as sophisticated as whatever it is. If your intention is, it's about how you want to apply it.
But you know what they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. It's not just on intentions. You have to actualize.
That was why I made reference to his track record. When we look at President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's track record, I mean, let's go back to 99. You know, most of the people we have in national leadership today at state level, at national level, like, they were practically unknown. The former vice president was a lecturer in the University of Lagos. But right now, a lot of people stand up and point at him as a worthy leader. Why? Because someone like President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, way back there, took a chance in him.
If I could just follow up, but there are several people who also think, but wait a minute, these people who have been in power are still there at the moment. They thought that if you're supposed to give people a fresh breath and allow for fresh ideas and that participation and enthusiasm on the part of the people, they would have done really well to ensure that, you know, you bring in fresh folks into that governance space so that you defeat that purpose of people perpetuating themselves in office.
But there are fresh faces in there. You have a minister for digital economy. You know, he's fresh. So a number of them are. You see, this is what I.
So it doesn't matter if you're bringing from a governor. It's no big deal.
No. See, we have to understand that there's got to be a fair and a fine blend of experience and you know, newness. You know, we're not about to throw away everything, all of our history. You know, we look at our journey so far from where we were before independence till this day. Then we look at, you know, what has happened in the last few years, in the last transformation that has happened in innovation in the last 30 years. Then we look at we should have a vision, a national vision of where we want to be. And to achieve that, we need a fine blend of our history and our newness. So it's very important for us to not think that the fact that we want to move away from how we used to be means we should throw away everything that we used to be.
No. The people have said he identifies new talents, fresh talent. They built on that, and everybody expected they were going to see it across board. So what's wrong with people thinking that, given what the party had published to the people?
Exactly. This is his promises. You know, he has made promises, and we have given him the mandate, and he has seen these people as people he knows he can, you know, implement his plans with and achieve. I mean, like I told you earlier, you know, I'm looking at the Minister for Digital Economy and certain position or perception of the nation he's had in the past, you know, and I was like, wait a minute. But then again, you know, it shows how much of a leader the president is. Like, it doesn't matter where you have been. It's about, let's give ourselves a collective chance to succeed. And to do that, I mean, let's actually believe that we can do this.
Do you think, I mean, you have pointed to sorry to interrupt you, but do you think that the president's history, the fact that he has been through these different levels which you have described, have now become sort of a burden to him? Because when you look at the fact that he's appointed 48 ministers, it's the highest we've seen since 1999.
It's going to increase too.
Isn't that kind of high? Well, 48, 45 were confirmed, 3 are still in abeyance. It's unclear what their fate will be. But this is what we've seen. Even at 45, it's the highest we've seen since 1999. Don't you think that that is a burden of sorts for a country that is in dire straits and is looking at reviving the economy?
Again, this is why track record is very important in public governance. I don't think 45 is even enough. I don't think 48 is enough. We have a population of over 200 million people.
What do you think will be enough?
We are in crisis, you know, so to put.
You want 55?
No. I'm not putting any number to it, but let's remember that when he became the governor of Lagos State, he felt that the need to take governance closer to the people demanded the creation of more local governments. A lot of people thought he was taking it too far, but look at how Lagos has moved in 24 years and how every other state has moved in 24 years. I'm not talking about potential. I'm not talking about what it used to be before then. I'm talking about sheer growth between then and now. And
this growth, you're only speaking about it in terms of revenue?
Every standard. Lagos isn't the poorest state in Nigeria, is it? Standard of living, Lagos isn't the worst in Nigeria, is it? Then, in terms of burden, Lagos holds the burden of the entire nation. The population, the migration of people from other states into Lagos alone have put enormous pressure on everything that Lagos has built in the last 24 years. But they are still building and still growing. What it means is if we can take a bit of this pressure off Lagos by creating 6 other states in 6 geopolitical zones, that sort of reduces, rural-urban migration, sort of reduces people leaving the north, the east, the west to Lagos. It balances up the state. And to do this, you need more people, you need more hands, we need more processes. So,
and somehow the balancing act of this 48, I mean, some people will say, oh, well, you also had people appointed for the geopolitical zones. That's what we used to see before, and maybe would make it 42 or thereabout. But this, we see that this redistribution of the extra ministerial slots, because when they're over 36 or even 37, it seems that we now have excess, but distributed between the southwest, some parts of the south-south, and I think the northeast and northwest, but not the southeast. So do you think that he also still has a political problem on his hands?
No, there isn't. Now, this is what it is. There's the constitutional requirement, like we mentioned, which he has satisfied by this. Then, like he rightly said, it's his prerogative, as a president, to pick from where or whom he thinks or he believes in will help him, implement the promises, deliver on the promises he has made to the Nigerian people. Most importantly, as a party, the APC has a responsibility to improve. We have had 3 national elections, and we can see clearly that we haven't grown as much in the southeast and the south-south. That responsibility isn't on the governance. It's on the political party. So I do not think, the president will, bug himself with any political challenges right now. No, we have enough challenges on our hand in terms of governance, in terms of expectation of people, in terms of where we need to be. That is where I think his focus is on.
I don't know, just a moment, I think we might be focusing a little too much on you, but I want you to take a look at this headline. This is Daily Trust this morning. Tinubu's 48 ministers to gulp 8.6 billion in 4 years. That's what Daily Trust is reporting. And you say that you think that we don't even have enough ministers. Are you looking at the overheads that are coming along with, so many more ministers?
It's not so much about the input as we should focus on the output. If I have to put in 10 billion naira in this to ensure that the poorest man in Nigeria in the next 4 years has a better life, has a better hope, his hope is renewed like I have promised, so be it. We're so fixated on the amount we put into solving our problem instead of looking at our expectation of the solution. How do we ensure that whatever we put in, we get the desired result?
Mr. Boala, do you agree with him on any of the points that he's raised with regards to the number of ministers that have been appointed? And also, because you already said that you see a few bright spots within the cabinet, but overall you're dissatisfied with ministers who seem to be threatening the people. With regards to the number of ministers, are you satisfied that we might even be needing more to get us out of where we are?
No, I'm not. In fact, I disagree with both his premise and his conclusion. When he said Nigeria is a population of 200 people, there are over 200 people there for the million people, therefore the number is not enough. America has a population of 300 plus. There are 15 ministers. 15 ministers and 9 SA, constituting 24 cabinet members. The greatest economy on earth. The New York budget for fire service in 2003 was more than the budget of Nigeria. Yet, they had 50 ministers. They still have 15 ministers. So I disagree with the number of ministers. I feel that when it comes to the number of ministers, he was more particular about politics than about governance. You know, certain decisions people take, you say, this decision is born out of politics. This decision is born out of your intention for governance. Like the number of ministers is purely politics. The number of governors in the cabinet, purely politics. The portfolios assigned to certain individuals, purely politics. I don't have an expectation of performance that is going to be beyond 15%. Looking at these cabinet members. And then again...
Why is that?
Because we have a cabinet that is full of people whose track record betrays what we're expecting out of them. A governor who did not do much in his state, when he had the resources of the state, he literally controls the legislature, you know, and the judiciary, because sometimes they influence outcomes in court. He couldn't do anything, and where he makes executive decision, nobody questioned it. Now he's coming to...
Does it matter if the governor is a minister of state who's not directly in charge?
Yes. Okay, for example, if you look at defense, what the minister of state and the substantive minister are from the same geopolitical zone. It's a strategic move on the part of Asiwaju. How can you make two ministers of the same ministry, state and substantive, from the same geopolitical zone? That's point number one. But the second one is even more intriguing. These are people that have never had any history that relates to defense. And people kept wondering, does Asiwaju have a particular feelings towards retired army generals? Now, if you look at the peculiar nature of the insecurity we have in the country, I mean, you have to bring in experienced people, retired army generals. You remember Buhari retired quite a number because he was looking to appoint somebody. And these people, resources that the government spent in terms of their training experience in the field, off-field, abroad, and everything, they are not going to be put to use because now you are appointing a governor. For example, Minister of State for Defense. His approval rating was less than 15% throughout his 4 years as governor of Zamfara. In fact, he failed...
Was there a poll to that regard?
Pardon?
Was there a poll to that regard?
Yes, it's a CSO. It's a CSO. I forgot the name. I forgot the name. It's a civil society organization that did that. They took a sample of people in Zamfara. And if you look at it this way, quite frankly, you couldn't even manage the army officers because it was around that time he had a problem with the security forces that the Buhari had to issue an order. If you see any helicopter, shoot it down. He also failed with the bandits because he now said he was going to introduce non-kinetic approach. He failed woefully. He's going to be Minister of Defense. He will sit and he will be confronted by these people whose experience transcends the realm of Nigeria to African sub-region. This is a president who is also thinking about invading Niger. You have to bring in experienced people. So this is an example where you have former governors who are not going to impact positively. You also have a governor who comes into a ministry but comes with the mentality that is a governor. Federal capital is not a state. And secondly, there is a law, the 48 laws of power. You don't outshine your master. In this Abuja, the captain is Tinubu, whether that is a minister of state. The act of the National Assembly...
Has he complained?
No. The reason I'm saying is because I'm giving my take, but I know for a fact, and you can mark that from today, wallahi tallahi, if care is not taken, it might not last up to 6 months. I'll tell you why. Some of the things he came on board and they started venting for, what are the basic needs of the residents of the FCT? Healthcare. Hospitals you go to, even some of the so-called strong hospitals, they don't have facilities. Patients don't have value for money. Look at the schools. There are so many things you could have come and said, this is your defined. Then in the course of doing that, you will say, I will go ahead and then implement some of the Abuja Master Plan. Do you know that right now, if you compare Abuja Master Plan with what is on ground, 62.7% of structures on the FCT are not in their master plan, including structures owned by federal government.
We'll come to that and continue the conversation when we return from this break in just a moment. So stay on with us. All right, welcome. Mr. Bola, what do you think about the appointment of Mr. Keyamo?
Well, Keyamo has worked hard enough for the party to be given ministerial slot, but the Asiwaju was quoted to have said he was not going to appoint any minister that worked under Muhammadu Buhari. But strangely, at the last minute, Keyamo was appointed. Now, in terms of whether Keyamo has the capacity to be a minister, I mean, he will beat a lot of people in that list. But the portfolio where he's sent to, that is where you're going to have a problem. Keyamo should have been sent to the Ministry of Labour because he claimed success during the period of Buhari. So if you had sent him to Ministry of Labour, he will continue where they stop in the hope that they will succeed. And even if they don't, since he has this aggressive posture, that place, that is what it is meant for. Now, understandably, the perception of others that Lalong was sent to Ministry of Sport as a punishment for his non-performance in the campaign. Labour. As his punishment for his non-performance at the campaign as the DG. But in Kiru, how can you send a gentle soul to a place where, even before the negotiation starts, the federal government has taken a posture that there will never be a resolution? Till either the court sack them or they finish, they will never have a good resolution with the Labour. Anatu, who comes from Katsina, you want to invade Niger, you should appoint her as humanitarian minister because humanitarian problem and poverty are in the north. Betty should have done better as Minister for Culture. She comes from a culturally rich state. They do this annual cultural program. If you see quite a number of them, you know, that kind of a misfit where you push this to this place. Okay, for example, Alake. Alake was sent, Alake's case is like the British people send sailors to America in order to get out of Europe. And I can understand the way he was trying to encourage himself. That his role is very strategic. The president trusted him.
But it is strategic, isn't it?
No. I think he was sent to Solid Minerals to be sent out of Villa. The original plan was for Alake to serve as Minister for Strategic Communication, which is where he has his maximum advantage. Look at the period after Tinubu was sworn in, that he was with Tinubu. He reduced to a large extent the extent of gaffe from Tinubu. His closeness to Tinubu has been more beneficial in all the places they went to, in all the addresses Tinubu gave. But the problem is that there would only be one chief of staff in the villa. So it's either he was not able to manage that role and still recognize the presence and authority of the chief of staff there that created the perceived, problem that now led to him being sent out to be sent to Solid Minerals in order to be sent out of the villa. And since he left, look at the performance of the president as far as media is concerned. Very poor.
So is that right? Pardon me. Is that the case? All of this that he's spoken about? It's like he never left the party. With these details.
I mean, just before we came on air, I told him that it is pretty difficult for him to distance himself from this government because, I mean, we were at the forefront of selling President Bola Ahmed Tinubu at the primary, before the primary, and I think he did a very good job, and I know he'll be back into the fold very soon. I mean, I just want to respond to a few things he's mentioned. He's talked about, starting with the matter of Dele. Like he said, yes, the solid mineral is very, very, very essential right now. If you look at the continent as it is, you look at where we are, where we're trying to be, if you look at the body language of our continental leaders, and all of these coups happening everywhere, it's some sort of revolt against imperialism, some sort of decision or desire to move away from neocolonialism. And one of the strongest angle they have actually taken so much advantage of the continent is through our resources, solid minerals. I mean, you look at someone like Dele Alake, and you look at his ability to be able to deliver on whatever task he's given, his discipline, his loyalty, his closeness to the president over a period of time. So he does not need to be with the president to know what the president will do in certain situations. Information, he is very good there, yes, but we have other people who are very good there. I mean, why would you want to waste such a talent in an angle where you can easily replace when you can deploy him elsewhere? And he talked about the FCT minister and the body language. While we understand, because of his membership of BDP and the new PDP and their struggle, I mean, I understand where that comes from. But then again, he talked about justice, talked about what the Attorney General has said. Our number one issue in Nigeria is discipline. And what Wike has just simply said in his first press address is going to enforce discipline in Abuja. For us who have been in Abuja for as long as the 90s till date, we know when Malam Nasir El-Rufai was FCT minister, his reign with all the others, the only thing that has been different has been what? Ability to enforce discipline, which is the language he's come up with. And if he does that right, everything else comes on. Then you talked about defense and the army generals. We need to move away from the fact that the armies are not built for leadership. They are not. I mean, in terms of our security issues.
How can you say that?
Good. Now, this is where we've had issues over a period of having military rule our country at that level for a number of times. Leadership is at different level. When we come to this national leadership, we have looked at our security. I can't say that enough. We have looked at our national security as purely military issues. They are not.
Okay.
They are not purely military issues.
Just a moment. I think you need to differentiate between civilian leadership and leadership. I mean, if you're talking about, you know, a military person or a former military person acting within a civilian space or a democratic space, and you say, oh, their training is not exactly suited to that, even that will be very debatable.
Now,
but to say that the military is not built for leadership,
let me quickly,
you know, there'll be very strong objections with that.
I agree. But like you said, I mean, when we talk about leadership right now, of course, we are in civilian dispensation. We're referring to civilian leadership. That's what we mean. We can't be talking about it in any other direction.
No, you didn't distinguish it.
Okay.
You just said leadership.
Okay, now that's clear. We're talking about civilian leadership right now. Now, let me remind us that in the last administration, certain media houses made references to the former President Muhammadu Buhari's style of leadership, that to the point that some media houses actually, they resulted to addressing him as his last title in the military as against actually addressing him as president. You know, I mean...
so you're saying he too wasn't suited to leadership?
No, I am saying that there is, in a civilian dispensation, there is a general, you know, there is a general, what's it called, openness of all to having people like us, you know, understand us, know our challenges, and know perhaps how to lead it. The specific area he's talking about is defense. They are not the CEO of the country. The defense ministers, one thing you know is, he talked about how they are from the same region. We have our NSA from the Northeast.
The military is more disciplined than civilians in leadership, any day, any time.
But the biggest solution we've had in our security challenges has been, like in the Niger Delta, we're non-militarized, were they?
In the
under the former late President Yar'Adua, then Jonathan, the Niger Delta, the approach that gives us relative peace in Niger Delta wasn't military, was it?
The military are more organized.
No, was it military?
More discipline-oriented.
No, let's speak from experience.
And they are more result-oriented, defined
I am not arguing this.
In fact, it's just that democracy provided us as the best option. But in terms of looking at the military structure and civilian structure, which one is the most efficient and effective? Forever. You will never. And then you talk about military
civilian dispensation.
When Iraq was when Saddam was killed, who was sent to Iraq to administer? In fact, all the places where Americans sent their armies either to invade, to correct situation, the military structures there are the ones that are giving the guidance and the support to civilians. Now,
how are we in democracy and we are making reference to an invasion as if it was the right thing?
But the president wants to invade Niger.
He hasn't told you that. He's simply following a laid-down protocol of the ECOWAS. He hasn't told you he wants to invade Niger. That's not his decision.
Welcome to Nigeria. I think you need to be abreast with what is going on.
No, get it right. Those are protocols, laid-down protocol that existed before his assumption.
And what's the protocol? France and the NATO influencing the ECOWAS.
I think we're going away from the discussion. The discussion is about ministers and you know, whether, you know, an ex-military man should have been, you know, appointed to the ministerial slot.
We have had military head of states. We've been in military system of government for decades. That hasn't fixed our military, our security challenges.
We have a retired military man in Obasanjo,
the biggest success
whose administration has been adjudged as better than all civilian administration from 1999 till today, hands down.
The biggest retired. I asked you a question that you didn't answer. The biggest success we've had in terms of hostility in Nigeria, in the Niger Delta, came from non-militarized approach. Let's appreciate that. We can only try to replicate a system that has worked. It's not, the fact that we've gotten used to military or general does not mean it is a working solution. It hasn't worked.
It doesn't mean that when the military are there, all that they do is implement military options. Even they oftentimes advocate non-kinetic options.
Just like it doesn't mean that the fact that you have a civilian head does not mean that we can't have technical work group, we can't have implementation project team, we can't have a different group that can be manned by these generals where their experience, their knowledge can come to use. But basically, we are in democracy. We have leaders who are now going to give instruction to this military general who are going to bring to use their experience, their expertise, their knowledge to follow through a laid down democratic processes of resolving our problem. So the head has to be purely civilian. Let's understand that. He talked about the size of ministry that I quickly wanted to understand. You compare a democracy of over 2 centuries to that of 24 years. It is easy to, I told someone in the last 8 years that the way former President Buhari, his personality and his person and what he did in 8 years would have taken an established state that is already running well, like United States of America, to a higher ground than the success he achieved there. You know why? Because you require more hands to build a working system. But the moment the system started working, you can now start reducing these hands. Right now, it is easy to say you have 15 cabinet ministers in the United States of America, but they have a system that is built that can survive itself. We know what former President Trump tried to do to their system. If they didn't have a system that is in place, what do you think would have happened? So we are building, let's not compare ourselves with developed nations. We are building a system. Until that system is built to the satisfaction of majority of Nigerians, then we need as many hands as possible. We need as much inclusion as possible. We can't be asking for inclusion and be talking about trimming down the number of people involved. No, it doesn't work that way.
So let me then just react in 1 minute to that. You see, a lot of us still have a misconception about the military. Each time we think of the military, we tend to think as if they are always in the bush with guns in their hands. They have colleges. The military, the soldiers, they undergo training. If you see a military doctor, you'll be shocked. A military lawyer, a military accountant, everything you see in the civilian administration and the civilian world, the military, they have it. The only difference is that by their discipline, they hold gun and they wear uniform. Now, and then the retired military generals I'm referring to are people who are no longer holding gun. Now, if you say, just because in their lifetime, they have served as military, therefore, they don't have the experience or knowledge of the civilians. That is where I have the quarrel, because
gentlemen, if you can allow me to butt in for a bit. Gentlemen, just a moment. As Malpoy said, we seem to be getting off track. You know, a lot is expected by Nigerians of these ministers, of this administration at that. So the question that I want to ask, and I think, Mr. Bola, you mentioned something along that line the other time. I think, the question was around whether or not you were hopeful of any significant performance with this administration, given the ministers that we have, and you said you weren't too expectant. Does that mean then that we're hopeless? I thought the job of the opposition parties was to ensure that whatever government is in power, whichever ministers are in power, rightly or wrongly, as you have quoted, they take them on and make sure they call them to account. That is a job for the opposition, to ensure that they perform, whether they want to perform or not. So, in that regard, do you think we're hopeless?
Well, somebody told me, a serving governor in APC, that since 1999, no opposition member has been more objective than I am in terms of providing alternative. The essence of opposition is provide alternative. So we don't criticize without providing alternative. For example, with respect to the cabinet appointment, I gave you my opinion. In terms of performance, now they promise renewed hope. But what have we seen so far? Renewed hunger, renewed hardship, and somebody used a local parlance and say renewed shege. Now, every of the promises, when the president took the oath of office till today, he has made 4 major decisions. On all 4 grounds, he got it wrong. One, he said the subsidy is gone. Now he has to walk back on that, because evidently it is now proven that he didn't have a firm grip of what was the situation before saying what he said. Naira has never come down since what he said. and he has to now do a walk back. Two,
does this mean, Mr. Boala, just a second, if you can hear me, does this mean then that it's all woe and no glow in all of these conversations that we are having? Again, I go back to the function that the opposition is supposed to come back. You've told us so far all the things that government has done that has been awry. Fine. What is the alternative, or what are the alternatives? And that is just the president. Now we have ministers in power who are supposed to take on several different sectors. Quite a number of them, of the 48 or 45 ministers that are already in power. So in terms of expectations of Nigerians, they're not going to all cry woe, woe all the time, because it's our life as a people. So speaking patriotically, if you can, is there any way or what things you can put your foot down and say, if these ministers don't do this, then we're going to go worse and worse over the years?
So if you have a wrong mechanic to fix a car because the car has a problem, and you insist that the wrong mechanic is the one that will fix the car, and he does not have the experience, he does not know what he's doing, no matter how positive-minded you are, that in the course of this thing, the Holy Ghost is going to help him, unless he knows the solution, he can never effect the change. Now, if I tell you that, what do you think I'm suggesting to you? Obviously, to change the mechanic. But they have just been appointed, so obviously nobody's going to change anybody. That's number one. Two, if you are driving to Lagos from Abuja and you take the road that leads to Lagos, they say all roads does not lead to the market. How do they put it in Yoruba parlance? Now, if you are going to Maiduguri but you're on the Lagos path, unless you change your path and reroute yourself to Maiduguri, there is no amount of speaking in tongue that will automatically turn Lagos to Maiduguri. That's the point I'm saying. There is a problem of capacity. There is a problem of clear-headed goal as to what you want to do. Now, Section 5 is clear. No minister there functions outside of the wishes and will of the president. It says that the power of the executive is conferred on him, and he performs it by himself through the vice or the ministers. And I like his attitude when he told them that, look, I'm going to be held liable, so I want you to do what I want you to say. That is the right way. Because some people tend to think that if the president gets it wrong, that somehow the minister will automatically perform magic. Now, every minister in the government of the federation is expected to carry out the vision of the president as regards the ministry towards the goal of the party. There are some who have been made ministers. They are not even members of APC. They don't even know the renewed hope. And so the way they are going already, from the way they've started,
Mr. Boala,
unless there is a retracing of the steps,
yeah, Mr. Boala, it's hard to
there's no way they will arrive at.
It's hard to fault your argument, really. It sounds quite convincing, but then again, I wonder if we can throw away the baby with the bathwater. Let me come to you, Mr. Aliyu, still on the matter of cost of governance. You have also argued to the effect that, not quoting you copiously now, that we should look at the expected outcomes, rather than the size, and that the president reserves the prerogative to appoint the number of ministers that he chooses to work with, But I'd like you to help us differentiate between these, or amongst these ministries. We have the Minister of Solid Minerals. We also have the Minister of Steel Development. There's the social welfare component in the Ministry of Health. But we also have the Ministry of Poverty. We have the poverty alleviation nomenclature added to the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. What's, in your own view, is the justification for these dividing lines, and what would have been similar or one ministry functioning as a whole?
All right. Like I have said before, we need to understand that lumping all of these expectations in one house or in one room can only reduce our abilities to achieve results in quick time. We don't have, forever to turn this country around. And as many hands as we can have on deck, the better for us, especially if they are effective. And we know they are going to be effective because we have someone who is in charge, who has taken responsibility. For every time he has taken responsibility in the past, he's proven himself right and he's given us results. Now, those ministries being broken into more ministries just shows that scientifically, the larger the surface area, you know, the higher your state or rate of reaction. You know, that's that. Steel and solid mineral being separated shows that we have an entire ministry that is going to pay attention on steel. You know, there's the automobile industry. There are a whole lot of things coming up that are built on, that should be built on steel. I mean, we have a Jakarta that we all believe is rotting away. We all believe we will not be able to move, you know, as quickly as we can, or we should move if, you know, such a place isn't put into proper use. We know what rail has done for us in the last few years. It's not effective because somewhere like Ajakuta isn't effective. Take care of that, and where we are. We have just discovered lithium, and what that shows is another reminder from Mother Earth that, you know, Nigeria is a special project. You know, there is no country that has been as naturally blessed and as humanly blessed as Nigerians, as Nigeria, and for that reason, you know, we need to bring a lot more people to go to work, and to do this, we need to create, you know, different areas where people can be working together. We need to have more people working at the same. I don't even think we have enough people working as it is right now. If we know what we have to do, we have how many population, how many millions of our people, of our citizens are living in abject poverty. If we need to take care of this in quick time, it means we need more hands to work. And I hope that answers it in a way. I quickly wanted to say something about the subsidy he talked about. I don't think anybody's talking about bringing back subsidy. But yes, the president is looking at, you know, the cost of energizing the productivity of our nation, the production sector of our economy. The energy is the ability to do work. And we have seen how expensive energy is. We are now in realistic touch, in reality. We are now in real, you know, experience of what energy actually costs, like it is globally. So what other way can the government come in? Can we look at the energy rebate scheme, where we sort of rebate that? Government is exploring that angle. It doesn't necessarily mean it is subsidy. It doesn't have to be subsidy.
Well, Mr. Aliyu, there were professionals in the ministry, the ministry under review in the last administration still, particularly in the steel ministry. Well, Ajakuta Steel, you know, did not come up and running steel. Still on the matter of reducing cost of governance, you know, some groups have come out to say that the former governors who are now ministers should, you know, stop receiving life pensions. What role would you think the president should play in this regard, particularly as a former governor as well? Should he be leading the charge, you know, to call on the state government to stop his life pension? That's if he's not receiving it at the moment, such that, you know, the other ministers who are former governors can also follow suit.
Oh yes, I think it's a right call, and I think everyone should support that. I mean, including Mr. President. I know a former governor who is now in the Senate. I think he's from the Southeast or somewhere. Southwest. Yes, Ogun State. I mean, I read somewhere. Yes, who had written to the state government asking for his. You see, we need to ensure honor. And we need our leadership class. We need the leaders to show, you know, as much as we want Nigerians to make sacrifices, the leaders should take the lead in that. They have to make sacrifices. You know, the idea of, it is no longer, you know, the intra or inter battles. No. We need to look at ourselves in the eyes and tell ourselves that this country has to work. We need to succeed, irrespective of what side of the pitch you play, irrespective of what side you belong. We need to, opposition can be more collaborative. Opposition can be more, they should do better. I mean, my brother did say that someone told him that he's been the best opposition. The person lied to you. The best opposition I have seen since 1999 is the current president. You know, when he was in opposition, he was so effective that he is a president today. That is a testament of how successful he has been in opposition, because he has been able to change the system, bring in a government that he believes in, and he has been able to, you know, there is nothing else about taking responsibility than doing it yourself.
Can I react to him?
So, I mean, it wasn't supposed to be anything, but I'm telling you that what we need oppositions to do is not to do opposition the way it used to be done. It is 2023. You need to be more, innovative. You need to be more sensitive. You need to be more patriotic. You need to look for ways. If it's not enough to just come and criticize, give me an alternative plan.
Mr. Audu, you seem to be digressing here to the opposition. I'm asking you to make a call on Mr. President himself to lead by example by asking Lagos State to stop his life pension. That's if he's still receiving it.
Oh, yes.
Mr. Audu, can you hear me?
Yes, I like the condition if he is still receiving it. Yes, I totally agree. Nobody should disagree with that. No one should disagree with that. Like I said, there's a lot of call for the ordinary Nigerian to make sacrifices. This will be unjust if the leadership is not making sacrifices, if the leadership is not making enough sacrifices. But I do not think this sacrifice has to do with the cost of governance. No. Let's not go getting, I'm looking for the right word now, getting this thrifty idea of being very, we don't have to want to be, penny wise and pound foolish. It's not about 10 billion to run government. If you are going to run a government with 10 billion that ensures that the poorest man, the most vulnerable Nigerian is taken care of in the shortest period of time, so be it. That's the goal. The goal isn't the amount you spend. The goal is the expectation of the government, which is the welfare and the security of the people of this country. Let's focus on that and not focus on the process it takes to get there is important, yes, but our attention shouldn't be about what it costs us to run a government. It should be about what we achieve with the government. How many people, how many Nigerians have we been able to renew their hope?
Quick response before we go.
Yes, for example, our attention should not be about what it costs us to run a government. How can you do a business without knowing the cost of running the
governance
business?
Is not business. Let's get it right. It's not business.
Governance
it's not profit and loss.
Governance is not profit and loss. The profit is the improvement of the welfare of the people of Nigeria.
It's service to humanity.
Which service are they giving to humanity? But let me just, so that because of time. Now, secondly, in terms of opposition and what role they are playing, we told the president when he said subsidy is gone without providing the palliative before. We criticized it, provided alternative. He did a walk back. That's opposition. He said he was going to invade Niger within 7 days. We told him no, and we provided the dangers that await him. And then the president walked back. Now he said he was going to give 8,000 to the Nigerian people. We told him no, it will not work. And then he had a walk back. Now he's giving bribe of 5 billion to every state. And we're telling him that will not work because even Labour ran the numbers and came to a conclusion that 1,500 is going to be per head. What will that do? We said no. We told them the alternative is provide infrastructure that will create jobs, that will better the life of the people rather than bribing the governors because there's going to be a runoff in the election.
Let me quickly say something about when we talk about...
what we know is grant
Mr. Daniel Boala is a very
honorable... He has talked more than I have.
You are a very honorable man.
All right, gentlemen.
We don't expect to use certain words for the sake of... We want a country that works, so we need to be very cautious of the kind of word. When you say he has bribed the governors, I mean, you can't defend that. Bribe? You can't... Of course, it's illegal.
Well, it's actually grant. They call it grant and loan.
So which one do they stand on? Grants? And the loan, well, which part is the grant? Which part is the loan? You're giving a governor loan. The Paris Club, what did they do with it?
Mr. Daniel Boala and Aliyu Audu, thank you both for coming on. We're back in just a moment, everyone. Stay on with us.